place. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask everyone to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Quina. Here. Mrs. Movena.
Here.
Mr. McKinnon.
Here.
Mrs. Clark-Pearson.
Here.
President Shiflett.
Here. All right. At this time, I would accept a motion for the approval of agenda items.
I move the Grand Ledge Public Schools Board of Education approve the December 10th, 2018 agenda items as presented.
Support.
Excellent. Thank you. The motion and a support, is there any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, no. And the motion carries. At this time, I would then accept a motion for the approval of consent agenda items.
I move,
Go.
I move the Grand Ledge Public Schools Board of Education approve the December 10th consent agenda items as presented.
Support.
Okay, all in favor, I will note that the consent agenda items include the November 26, 2018 regular meeting and closed session minutes. The motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, no. And the motion. That moves us into public comment on non-agenda items. Seeing no one interested in such thing, we will move to reports.
Got a big crowd here tonight.
Is there a deep sigh there?
Yeah.
All right, I would accept a capital connection report, but I do not believe Denise is here. We did not receive a Eaton Risa report. Grand Ledge Education Foundation report also resides with Denise. That brings us to the superintendent's report. We are really moving through.
That was fast.
You were good.
I've got two items. First of all, 803 Spring Street was purchased. I signed the paperwork this past week. We purchased that using sinking fund dollars. We are currently emptying that residence, and the idea is that that will become a parking lot next to the other guest parking lot in front of the high school. One of the things that we've heard over the years is that there is a real need for additional parking in and around the high school. We think that's going to double, or at least double, the number of parking spaces right in front of the high school. The second one, Tom Soul, mayor of Grand Ledge, approached us today asking about an appointment to the Grand Ledge Parks and Rec Board, and he'd actually done a little research to determine that it does not have to be a board member. So my question for the board tonight, and we can have a short discussion if that's all right, is the ability to look at Steve Baker, and see if he has somebody in that arena that would like to represent the district and on the Parks and Rec Board.
My
So
question
I'll
is,
open it up to,
yeah, my question's always been, since Grand Ledge Public Schools took over the Parks and Rec program, I don't know why we need any representative from our district to serve on their board any longer.
I think he just wants some extra representation, and we took over the community rec side.
Yeah.
There's still that park side that they want to continue to work through, and
But why does it have to be a member of the school district?
It's just the way their bylaws.
Their bylaw, yeah. it's
But
their
couldn't you,
bylaws.
I've
They
talked
could-
about
yes,
this,
they
couldn't
could
they
amend-
change the bylaws?
They could. But I don't believe they have the interest in doing so.
I guess
know.
my curiosity is, I think Steve Baker has a lot on his plate.
and it might not be Steve himself.
Okay.
It might be a
Right.
coach.
Okay,
It might just be somebody that has some connection to the community, some connection to the school, and is a distant arm. It's just one more voice of somebody that would like to attend a meeting at least once a month and
but
talk
basically,
about good things
it
happening
really
in
could
Grand
be
Ledge.
anyone that lives in the district, or
Could
not in the
be.
district, but in Grand Ledge.
It could be.
Yeah.
But in this case, it'd be, at least Steve Baker would have an opportunity to
That-
choose somebody. We would have somebody that would be bouncing ideas off him. And again, it's really an arm's reach because we run all the community rec now. It is
Yeah.
just parks.
It's just parks.
Yeah,
This would be a great way for an onboarding for our new member, though, as well.
You know, and by the way, I haven't looked at those bylaws, but usually, standard is when you have an organization that's in the district that has a seat, they're representing the organization which is in the district. So I don't even think, I've never really thought that it had to be a resident. And I'm fine having Steve Baker look at it. The one thing is, there's always a little tug between organized sports and other things that parks and recreation offer. So, you know, I guess I would think that since we handle a lot of the organized activities, that it would be nice to have sort of maybe an emphasis somewhere else. But all in all, I'm actually, will never look at this again, and I'll be perfectly happy with whatever you do. Because it, you know, it's really for the city, it's not really for the schools directly, so have at it.
If that's what you see as appropriate, but I've always questioned that.
Well, it's always been a board member, but the board has consistently come back over the last 4 or 5 years and said, you know, this could be a different position, doesn't have to be a board member. So I think that would be a nice middle ground to have Steve Baker kind of oversee it. And the city has one more person sitting on that committee, and it might be a win-win for us.
I've got no problem.
I'm not seeing anybody shake their head.
Delegate.
Yeah.
Okay,
Do it.
then we'll take that off the organizational aspect from January as well, for whoever's incoming president. We'll make that a note. Okay, thank you. That's it.
All right. That moves us to old business. This time I would accept a motion for the payment of sinking fund invoices.
I move the Grand Ledge Public Schools Board of Education approve the payment of sinking fund invoices in the amount of $20,500 as presented.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. I will note that the $20,500 is for fencing for Willow Ridge to keep
Playground.
the playground and keep our kids safe. So, with a motion and a second, is there any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, no. Motion carries. Which brings us to new business. I would accept a motion for approval of the annual summer tax resolution.
I move that the Grand Ledge Public Schools Board of Education approve the annual summer tax resolution as presented.
Second?
Okay, a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this item, or perhaps a little background? We do this every year.
Nancy?
We have do this every year. We've done it, since the early in the 2000s. What we do is we collect 100% of our operating tax from the city of Grand Ledge and Delta Township. And by doing so, it helps us be able to make payroll in the month of September when we do not receive a state aid payment. So that has, it reduced our need to borrow from the state aid note pool, and then this year, of course, we didn't even need to borrow, so it has benefited the district immensely.
Plus, it seems like spreading out the tax might ease the burden on some of our homeowners as well, by not having them pay everything in the middle of the winter.
Because another piece of that is it brings 50% of the debt and sinking fund tax from Delta and Grand Ledge. All the other jurisdictions pay 100% of their taxes in the winter.
Yeah, and by the way, I thought that this, and maybe I'm misremembering, I thought this was mainly the portion of it that was the school aid.
It is, the 100% is just the operating taxes, which is levied only on businesses
Right.
and rental properties. So the bulk of the money is just the business
So
tax.
if you have a principal residence exemption, you would not get the
You do-
school would not be levying a summer
Correct.
tax. Right.
Correct.
So when you was saying that,
Thank
it nonetheless, it is still, even if you're a business, although I know that, you know, this time of year, for a lot of businesses, it's called Black Friday for a reason, but you're finally in the black. But we've been doing this since, I think, for 15 years. So, or just about, so it's pretty normative now.
All right.
Questions?
Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
President Schiflet,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark Pearson,
Yes.
Mrs. Mulvena,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mr. Quina.
Yes.
The resolution is adopted. This time I would accept a motion for approval of the resolution authorizing issuance and delegating the sale of bonds.
Easy for you to say.
I move the Grand Ledge Public Schools Board of Education approve the resolution authorizing the issuance and delegating the sale of bonds as presented.
Second.
The motion and a second, is there, I'm assuming there's some discussion on this. I'm going to go out on a limb.
We actually have Craig Kaler here tonight from Hilltop Securities, who is going to be our lead in selling the bonds. And I don't know if you want to join us at the mic and just give us some background on what this is going to authorize us to do.
I'd be happy to, thank you. And thanks for the opportunity to work with Grand Ledge again. I did a little research this morning, and I've banked 3 deals over the years for the district. Back in the dark ages when I worked at UBS, who decided they didn't want to be in the business any longer, and then back in 2016, we did a refunding bond for the school district as well. So I'd like to thank you again. The opportunity is great to work with you. What you have in front of you is a resolution that provides all the parameters for the sale of your bonds. This is initiated through a letter from your financial advisor, PFM, who sets those parameters, and then it goes to your bond counsel, who drafts it all so it's in proper legal form. Kind of standard, it's pretty much boilerplate language, but it does appoint your team, which is your bond counsel of Troon Law Firm, PFM is your financial advisor, Hilltop Securities is your underwriter, and then it sets some parameters as far as the terms of the bonds that we will bring to market for you. So they're all pretty clearly stated in there, and it gives all the language regarding the school bond qualification and loan program participation as well. So again, it's kind of a boilerplate transaction, but if you've got any specific questions, I'd be really interested in responding to any of those if you have any.
Well, do you have any idea what the interest rate might be and when you might be selling these bonds?
This market is much like the stock market.
Yes.
It's been volatile. It's been changing on a daily basis. Rates had been inching upward over the last few months. Last week, we saw the rates creep back down again. To venture a guess would probably violate my professional ethics. But what I can tell you is when I got in this business almost 16 years ago, we used to joke and say rates are at 40-year lows. I don't know how long it's going to last. And we've been saying lately they're at 50-year lows, and I don't know how long it's going to last. So they continue to be historically low, even if you went back 10, 12 years and you look at where rates were, how high they were, and even with the creeping up we've seen over the last couple years, they're still historically low. This is a great time to be in the market, and there's a couple factors that are causing that. Largely, the biggest factor is supply and demand. We are in a second year of dramatically lower issuance in the marketplace. So there's still the same number of investors out there looking for bonds. There's ample money available to invest in bonds. There's just not enough bonds being brought to market for those investors. So it's created a very nice competitive market for the bonds. So we're very optimistic right now, given the credit quality of Grand Ledge, the fact that you have the school bond loan qualification and loan program backing your bonds, which gives you the state's credit rating, which is another big plus because that helps lower your interest rate. It's a backstop, if you will, for investors who are looking to purchase your bonds because these bonds don't see defaults. So they're very safe.
One of the questions I had, the overall millage rate is low, even though the amount of the debt would be higher than we've ever done before, but it's partly because of the way it's been sort of laddered, so that it's not all done at once. So we're not doing the whole, I'm having a little trouble accessing, trying to read it on my phone, what we're doing. But how much are we actually doing right away?
Less than 60 million. No more than 60 million is what the authorization states.
Okay, so this isn't a contract for the whole thing, just, and then just laddering it. This is just a
It's-
contract for the 60?
It's phase one, which we talked about, and a portion of proposal two as well, so that when we open up Beagle, we can do the entire project, which includes that community pool and the new athletic pool. So we're trying to get Beagle completed in this phase one aspect as well.
But
But it's no more than 60.
the amount that will be issued, but the contract is just for the amount that's going to be issued. It's not a broader
Correct.
one that.
Nope.
Okay.
It's just for no more than 60 million.
You know, so does that mean I get another chance for a little?
I'll have
leverage?
something better next time.
I don't think I can go much higher than this. Then I would have, then people would wonder what I was doing.
Just have to
you know.
promise not to
I
throw at
can't
anybody
trade
in board
bonds for a
meetings.
little toy, but, okay,
I'd like to see a bull rather than a bear.
Yes, ma'am.
that's true.
Absolutely.
Before you go,
Yes.
just in case there's anyone watching at home, is there a way that community members how would they go about purchasing
Great question.
bonds that are issued under this?
That's a really good question. We've been discussing this with Dr. Metcalf and with PFM as well. We'll be working very closely with your local Edward Jones reps. So if somebody would like to purchase bonds, I would encourage them to talk to the local folks there at those offices. I'll get in touch with them probably starting 2 to 3 weeks before we're scheduled to price your bonds.
Okay.
I'm anticipating the possibility of an ad to go into probably the State Journal, just to get a broad distribution, unless you want to put it in a local paper. Yeah, I'm in DeWitt. I could put it in the DeWitt Bath Review. It would get lost with the rest of the ads. So I want to make sure it's in a place where we're going to see people able to find it. But we will work very closely with Ed Jones as the vehicle for getting bonds into the hands of local investors.
Excellent, thank you. Is there any other questions?
No.
Seeing none.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This does require a roll call vote.
Mrs. Clark Pearson,
Yes.
Mrs. Movena,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mr. Quina,
Yes.
President Schifflet.
Yes. All right. That brings us to public comment on agenda items. Seeing no public. I would entertain comments from staff and board. Let's begin with staff.
I was going to say, as we get ready to go on break here in another 2 weeks, I wish everybody a very Merry Christmas. It's been a great fall and a lot of great projects that we're working on for the bond, and a lot more information coming after the new year.
I just want to say, too, I'm very excited about this bond proposal, what it's going to do for our community and our children. There's so much we can do for the schools, the education of our kids. I think it's going to be a real benefit to our district. But I also want to say this is the last time I'm going to see you all until the new year. And I'm not going to see Bev Winstanley if she's out of the country traveling, I found out tonight. So, yeah, this is the last meeting of the year. So Merry Christmas and have a Happy New Year.
And I, having just voted to issue the first slightly less than 60 million in bonds, it does remind me that it is wonderful. It's quite a gift that the community has given to our children and to the community itself, because these are facilities that will be used by many people. And it will, I've always thought that the schools are sort of the new cathedrals of towns. And it is a place where everyone can go and everyone belongs. So I want to thank the voters from the bottom of my heart for this gift. And just a point, I was talking to Superintendent Metcalf this week about some of the processes that we're going to be going through, and he said something that as a CPA, I'm warmed by, which was, we will be watching the very first dollar. You know, when you have this much, you know, you have to still take care of each dollar as wisely spent, and that's exactly what I love to hear. So we will do a good job and keep the faith of the community in us. So thank you.
Yeah, it's been a great year. We did some great things. Look forward to another great year next year.
Excellent. This is my last meeting in this chair. I want to thank everyone for being so great and easy to work with. Wish everyone a Merry Christmas. And with that, I will note that there is an organizational meeting, Monday, January 14th, 2019, 6 p.m. in the Stoughton Boardroom. It's a committee of the whole / work session immediately following the organizational meeting. And with that, I will entertain a motion to enter into closed session.
I move that the Grand Ledge Public Schools Board of Education move into closed session for purposes of discussing the possible purchase of real property pursuant to Section 8D of the Open Meetings Act, Public Act 267 of 1976.
Second?
With a motion and a second, is there any discussion? This is a roll call vote.
Mrs. Movena,
Yes?
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mr. Quina,
Yes.
President Shiflett,
Yes.
Ms. Clark Pearson.
Yes.
We will enter into closed session at 6:22 p.m. Thanks, Rob.